Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, bringing in another wonderful guest. Her name is Valerie Trapunsky, and I got the name right. Took me a few to practice that one. She has a company that she owns called ChatterBoss.com, ChatterBoss.com. Now, Valerie's been in this business for 6 years, and she's had a client base around for 9 years, and we're going to talk about how you are losing or how you can gain 10 weeks or more worth of time back into your life. Now, I know that's a bold promise, but we're going to talk about this in the terms of how to leverage through other people and how to do the leveraging in a correct way and how to do, avoid the pitfalls of leverage. And I can tell you, we don't normally promote on this particular podcast, but I did a bit of promoting because I believe so strongly in the concept of what she does. And I'm using the concept myself, and the concept works amazingly well. So without further ado, let's go talk to Valerie and let's get some time back in your life, or let's get some time utilized in a more profitable and revenue growing process for you. Here we go. Valerie, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Doug. I love your energy.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about how people in business, as you say, at least 10 weeks a year guaranteed, right?
Yes.
Now, if that hasn't caught your attention, folks, those of you who are listening, I'm not sure what will today. Maybe a dancing unicorn walking across a stoplight or something. Maybe that will do it. But think about it. 10 weeks per year. What does that cost you if you're losing it, right? It's easy to figure out. Take your company revenue or your personal net, divide it by 52, multiply it times 10. That's your number, right? So how are people losing 10 weeks per year, Valerie? Please tell me.
So, entrepreneurs, we're an interesting bunch, right? We have all of these ideas. We go into business for our various motivations. We want to succeed. We want to make money. We are passionate about the product that we are creating and the communities that we are serving. And I think because of this nature of entrepreneurs, there is very often what we end up getting into is, I can do it myself. These are the things that I have been doing in my business. And we're also always experimenting. What it means is that there is an administrative burden. Every business has an administrative burden. Entrepreneurs spend anywhere from 30 to 60% of their week bogged down with administrative tasks. And because of our nature, a lot of the times we start taking on that administrative burden little by little. In fact, the very first thing that you do in your business is administrative. When you give birth to your idea, the first thing you have to do is register, you do your trademarks, you get your domain and so on. And so we start to train ourselves that these administrative things are part of our role, the role of the CEO. When in fact, very early on in our business, we have to learn to differentiate between the things that we should be doing as the CEO and the things that we should be getting administrative support with like from a remote executive assistant.
So that's a really interesting concept. And I know some people going, well, wait a minute, I'm a $180 million company. I don't need that. I've already got that, right? And then there are other people going, oh my God, I'm a small company. Yeah, I need somebody to help me, right? And we're going to talk about more about that too. I want to put this in perspective, because for the $180 million company, I was once working with a company and the CEO, and I was talking with him, and he said, I've got to push our meeting off. I got to go get coffee. And I'm like, what do you mean you're going to get coffee? Yeah, well, I go down to the local coffee shop once a day. I get coffee for the whole company, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, really? He goes, yeah. I said, do you are you friends with these people? Like, they family? No. Just, I've been doing this every day, and it's just something that I do, and I kind of like to do it. I said, you kind of like to do it, or it overjoys you? He said, yeah, no. He's like, I just like to do it. People like it around here. I'm like, all right, let's figure out what it's costing you per year to go get coffee. And so we did, and we worked the numbers out, and it turned out to be $436,000 a year it cost him to go get coffee. And now some of you on this, hearing this, might be going, that's no way. Well, if you take what the company was doing and you take the numbers we were just talking about, it was $436,000. So I said to him, hey, I'll come get your coffee for you, because it only takes less than an hour a day, right? I'll hire somebody, put them in your company. You pay me the $436. I'll pay them their $35,000 a year to go get coffee, and I'll net down an extra $400,000 plus a year. That caught his attention. And this is what I'm hearing you say. Maybe I'm magnifying it and to the obscene, if you will. But over the years, as I've been working with companies, Valerie, it blows my mind, some of the stuff that they're doing, that if they just focused on revenue generation during that time, or profit optimization, versus these routine tasks that should be with someone else, that's how they're losing their 10 weeks per year. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, and I love what you say, because a lot of the way that we approach the remote executive assistant space is we do a lot of coaching with entrepreneurs. We get them to delegate, even if it's their first time delegating. And we have this model, right? So we'll say, what are the things that you should delegate? It's the things that you're not good at. And all of us can pinpoint the things that we're not good at. And those are usually the first things that we are ready to let go of when we are ready to get support.
Right.
There is then this other category of projects, which is the things that I may like to do, I may be good at them, and I should not be doing them. And this is what's harder for entrepreneurs and CEOs to let go of. Because just like you explained in your example, and I think that it's brilliant, this person enjoyed going to get the coffee. Maybe it was a break for them. They liked taking the walk. They liked their barista. It was just something in their day that they enjoyed. And so it's harder to give up some of those things. Some people enjoy the organization part. Some people enjoy vacuuming. Some people enjoy this, gets them into a groove, and it gets them into the Zen mode. And it's harder to advise to say, look, get rid of the things that you like to do, but you shouldn't be doing, so that you can go make more money. The first thing is, are the revenue generating activities the activities that you enjoy, right? Hopefully, yes. And if that's the case, then when we look at the other things that don't generate income, but you are doing because you like, it's a consideration. What else in your life that you like doing aside from this? Spending time with your family, exercising, etc. And the bigger the organization, the higher the stakes. So when you said, maybe you're amplifying this example to this extreme, it's a brilliant example, because it is true. And again, the bigger the organization, the more limited your time, the higher the stakes.
I agree with you. I don't shovel snow. I don't do lawn work. Now, here's the funny part. I used to own a landscaping company, so I love doing both of those, right? And even this year, because with the pandemic, it was harder to find really qualified people to actually do lawn work. I mean, they're all busy and things like that, right? So I was like, oh, I'll get a lawnmower. And then I did, and I got a riding lawnmower, and I'm out there riding along. And then I get back and I'm like, it took me 90 minutes to cut the lawn. And I'm like, how stupid am I? That's what I said to myself. And the reason I say that to myself is because if I look at the numbers that we're talking about, right? I don't really love doing the lawn anyways, but I like it because it's kind of like a little Zen moment. You can get out there, put the head cups on, and just, kind of tune out. I'm not trying to take joy away from people when I'm saying this example or my example, right? And I know you're not either. In this company's case, they hired me actually to help grow their revenues and profit and optimize their sales processes. So I felt compelled to actually point this out to the CEO. We're not talking about stripping off all the things in the world you love. If you love to do yoga and you're taking 90 minutes a day to do yoga, we're not talking about go get an outsourced assistant to do your yoga for you.
It's all trade-offs, right? I think that what's brilliant about the way that you are framing it is that if you're going into things eyes wide open, I have a certain amount of the week that I'm spending with family. I have a certain amount of time that I'm focusing on myself. I have a certain amount of time that I'm spending in my business, and I have some leisure activities. And so if bringing and getting coffee is your leisure activity, that's not a problem. It should go into that category though. And so then what's the trade-off? What are you giving up? And so the same for everyone else. And so I think that when we look at it in terms of blocks of time that we have in the week and we make those decisions consciously, what happens with that administrative burden is that it creeps up on you, because in the very beginning parts of your business, you start to do it. And then you start to train yourself that I'm the only one in my business that can start to do these things. And that's how that 30 to 60% grows over time. It's a really, really scary number.
Yeah, it's kind of like putting on weight. We don't realize it, just a little quarter ounce or a gram or two per time that we're gaining. And then all of a sudden, 26 weeks later, we're like, man, I'm fat. I've got 15 pounds on me that I didn't think of, right? And you don't realize it's happening. And by the way, everyone listening, I have a great, wonderful 42-inch lawnmower for sale right now that's sitting in a garage that's collecting dust, because I'm not doing it again, because and I almost fell into the trap again. So to your point, it's easy to fall into the trap, right? Because now snow season's here, and I'm like, how are we getting somebody that's reliable to come take the snow? And I'm like, oh, I'll get snow blowers, and I'm like, whoa. So for $100, they'll do my driveways and do my walkways and everything else, right? And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because we talk a lot about the 1% earners here, right? People who are those driven people to get to the top 1% of the earners category. And we talk about how to do that without burning out in the process. One of the ways of not burning out in the process is getting other people to do exactly what you just said. And if we take, and look at our time value as 1% earners, and we go, okay, and I just did it. Mowing the lawn would be 2,340 minutes, right? That's what I figured out for the short season that I have here. Now, I don't live in Florida or something. You do it all year long. It'd be more than that. But if you took 2,340 minutes, divided it by 60, which is the hour, that's 39 hours I would spend a year mowing the lawn. How many clients could I find if I was just full-time focused for a full week? Could I find one client that paid me, I don't know, 50 grand, 30,000, 10, whatever, 150, $1 million, $2 million, whatever that the company listening to this is, right? And the reality is yeah. So why not pay that $100 a week, go make $50,000, pay $2,600 a year. I don't know, peel off part of the $50,000 to, I don't know, go out to wherever, Hawaii, right? And I'm still up 40 grand by the time I'm done, right? So that's my thought. But so if we're going to be a 1% earner, those of you listening who want to be there, your time and how you use your time is one of your top 5 assets in the process. So we're speaking with Valerie Trapunsky. Didn't get it right. I've been getting it right all the way along. At least you folks know this is live, right? Because when you screw up, right? So Valerie Trapunsky from companies called ChatterBoss. So ChatterBoss.com. Check it out. You're providing, well, you tell us, what are you providing for people?
Yeah. So ChatterBoss is a remote executive assistant service. We support entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs by pairing them to a dedicated and on-demand remote executive assistant. What that means is that you have a consistent person in your business that is your right hand. With that said, you do not have to bring them on a part-time or a full-time basis. Actually, the way that we work is that we keep our time tracked by the minute down to the second. We ebb and flow with you as your business grows and as the needs of your business change as well. And so you get access to one dedicated assistant. They become your right hand, like a chief of staff. A lot of our entrepreneurs say that what their executive assistant feels like is a mini COO. From there, what happens is we actually become this entrepreneurial full 360 platform. So you have access to your dedicated assistant. With that, you also have a backup assistant. Your backup assistant is there when your primary is sick or is away. This is a unique model because generally speaking, you have your executive assistant, they become your right hand, they know everything about you, and you start to rely on them, which is for a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs is scary. You're giving up control. And what's really, really scary is when your assistant goes on vacation, they're sick or something happens. And so you start to get very worried about what will happen if this person is no longer by your side. And so that's why we have this model. There's a backup person. They're also trained on your systems. They have access. They can step in for each other. From there, your team also has the ability to grow. We have specialists on the team. If there is a need for copywriting, if there's a need for sales-related work, if there's a need for marketing, anything specialist related, we have individuals on the team as well. And in addition to that, there is a large list of vendors, preferred vendors. So for example, if you're asking your assistant you have the need for a whiteboard video that needs to be created. Your assistant, this is a very hyper specialized project. They would have to go somewhere on Upwork, on Fiverr. They would go and they would find that person. And I say that because your assistant should not be the Jill or the jack of all trades. If the person, they can coordinate additional vendors, but if you're asking for a whiteboard video and the person never made one, so certainly they should not be practicing. That is not the best use of their time either. And so what they could actually do, instead of going and doing the whole process of finding someone online, we have a trusted vendor list. So assistants who have supported clients with that particular task will say, I've had a good experience with this person. And so it opens up a shortcut to getting a lot of what you need done. And it could be really anything within your business that needs to be done today, needs to be done by someone else. Your assistant can coordinate it as your right hand.
So those of you who are longtime listeners, you know we don't pitch on this podcast, right? You're the second person, Valerie, that's ever pitched on the podcast. And the reason I asked you to do this is because I know the power in what you're offering. And if I didn't have executive assistants around me, I would be so stagnated in growth, right? So I have 3 executive assistants around me who are outsourcing to other places. And that's the way we get things done here. And so I'm going to talk to all the solos of the sales teams at the moment, because if you don't have a backup to the backup, you're leaving yourself wide open. And believe me, I'm saying this from experience. I can tell 2 stories. One for sure. Even I was using a small CPA firm, and my CPA was amazing, great, off the charts, best of the best. Then guess what? Got sick. Husband got sick. She got sick. Thought it was all over. Then they both got COVID. 6 weeks later, they're still sick, right? So what do you do in that case? There's no backup to the backup. So hard lesson learned, right? So
Yes.
that backup to the backup thing that you're talking about is invaluable. Now, imagine you've got somebody doing your proposals for you, those of you in sales, right? All the routine stuff that you know you shouldn't be doing, even if you love it. And I can't imagine anybody on this listening goes, oh, I love doing proposals. But if you're doing proposals or you're getting information out or things that are there, all of that is taking away from your prospecting time. And there has to be a point where you must say, okay, if I want to be a top 1%er, I must leverage my time. So how do you leverage your time? If you're paying somebody X per hour, but you're earning X times 2, you're doubling up on that, getting better productivity, and you're able to get the larger clients. It's that simple. So what I'm hearing you say, Valerie, is it's the difference between like going to a service like Upwork or Fiverr or whatever, just sort of trying to hire a virtual assistant. And what you're saying is this is an executive assistant who's going to actually kind of take ownership of the actual process of getting stuff done. So I don't have to think it through like I will with a virtual assistant. Of course, I got to train this person a little bit maybe, but they're positioning more as an operations entity within my organization versus just a virtual assistant where you kind of outsource, right? Am I getting this right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of conversations in the market. What is a virtual assistant? What is an executive assistant? What is a chief of staff? And essentially, and there is a really wide gap in terms of the kind of service and the kind of person that you can bring on, all of which you could call, for example, a virtual assistant. So you can outsource, for example, out of the country, and this would be your kind of lowest priced option per hour. And usually people go into the Philippines and other countries. Your pricing could be anywhere from $7 to $9 an hour, and everyone has seen the ads, right? You can get a full-time, half-time person, $15,000 a year outside of the countries, and this is possible. When is this kind of strategy right in your business? Do you have very clear standard operating procedures? Do you have a lot of time to train this person? Are you a master delegator? And are all of the things within your business so clear that you are very comfortable delegating them out, and you have a long leeway to train the person, give them feedback, etc. So baked into that low cost annual cost is the cost that it will take you to do the training, to do the oversight, etc. In a certain amount of time. Yes, you can kind of mold that, but it's how much time do you have and how good are you at delegating? The next option is, and our dedicated assistants, so now I'm talking about ChatterBoss, right? Our dedicated assistants are US based. And this was a strategy for a specific reason. I believe that your remote executive assistant should be in the country where either you are or where your business is. The reason for that is the executive assistant role, there are no templates for this position. Yes, there are some things that end up being more or less standard, right? Email management, calendar management, etc. Right? Some of the things that we kind of all know can fall under the executive assistant role. But then so much of that position is customized to your personality, your particular work style, the kind of industry that you're in, the kind of work that you do, etc. There is a lot more opportunity to miscommunicate with your executive assistant than there is to miscommunicate with your lawyer, to miscommunicate with your CPA, etc. Because at least within any other industry, you have a limitation of the kind of work that is being provided to you. And there are more templates. As an executive assistant, I'm learning the things that you're doing. I'm trying to anticipate you. Communication is very important. For that reason, I say your person should be a US-based person. They can delegate out to people outside of the country. But if you are here and your business is here, that is the model. And we also look, we are looking to change the conversation about what are executive assistants. A lot of people say, VAs, executive assistants, they're just task doers, just do as I say. But there are multiple layers to delegation. And you can get to that highest level of delegation where you say, you know me, you know my processes, you are an expert, I trust you, do it. And that is the holy grail, right? All CEOs, entrepreneurs, they want to get to that point. It takes time learning to delegate, flexing your delegation muscle. It takes time with that person that you're working with, but it also is very important that you selected the right person, the right expert that's going to bring their experience and their skill set to this position.
I'm going to back that up because one that has done a ton of outsourcing through different countries. So you had said SOPs in line, make sure you're training, you don't have a long runway, or you have a long runway. Are you a master delegation? Let's face it, most salespeople are terrible at this. Most executives are terrible at this. And what was the fourth one? Well, I wrote down another one. Culture fit. And I can tell you story after story, and I'll tell a couple of them. So we outsourced one time our software offshore. And the gentleman that was here was my partner. He had a lot of software experience. I now have a lot of software experience. And so I get a call from the owner of the outsourced company in Poland that we were outsourcing. And he said, your business partner's mean. And I said, what do you mean he's mean? I mean, he can be direct, but I don't know him to be mean, right? And he said, half my software crew, your team here, is in the back room crying. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I call my partner and he goes, what are you talking about? So I call back Poland. I go, this is what I heard. And he goes, yeah, you can't do that here. And I'm like, but this is normal conversation in US, right? And so we want to know where we're outsourcing to for the culture. I now have a software company in Poland. It is amazing. I understand the culture. 2 reasons. One, I married a woman from Poland, so I understand the culture. 2, she helps me with the culture when I don't understand it, because it's vastly different than an American culture, right? So culture fit, I've done this in South Africa where, I'm trying to pay people more money than they're asking for, and they won't take it because their government, according to them, will tax them, and there's other government issues that they don't want to deal with. If you're dealing in a country like, any Asia or whatever, they have different cultural values than, say, people in Europe or than in the United States. We all want the same thing as people, but there's different cultural values. So if one doesn't take into account that other cultural value, that's going to cause a lot of friction, and we don't realize it. And so I love what you said, because you get that culture fit as well, and then let other people. So I want people to also understand, we're not talking about you need to do this full time to get the results from an executive assistant. We can do this part time, and a lot of times they can do it way faster than we can do it. And again, I'm going to use myself as the example, right? When I go to do, say, a podcast like this, I have people who are already put the notes together. They put the links together. They put the questions together. They put everything together. And we're not scripted, but they even put me questions, the points of interest, right? If I had to do that, it would take me 2 hours probably to do that. They do it in about 12 minutes because they've got it down to a system. So what that means is I could do 5 podcasts a day if I wanted to. We have that much response coming in now. And they're spending what, an hour putting this together? I would be spending 10 hours doing the same thing. And here's the really crazy part. They're 19 times better than I would be. So this is kind of the value. So when you're looking at this, ladies and gentlemen, he, she, and they who are listening to this podcast, give high credence to where are you putting your time? Is it giving you the ROI that you are looking for? Or are you I hate this word, sabotaging yourself by taking on the things that you shouldn't be taking on? Because if you want to be in the top 1%, you've got to use your time wisely. Valerie, back to you.
It's about how easy or how difficult do you want to make this journey for yourself? And so I say for sure, people that are delegating out for the first time, you're going to make it for yourself much harder if you go into one of those other routes, because it requires a certain level of expertise, right? And so that's something to keep in mind. But there's another kind of concept that we talk a lot about. And when you were describing this experience of you doing this podcast where you just have the ability to step into a Zoom, have that conversation, leave, and then all of the other pieces are done for you, the first thing that comes to mind about your experience and also my own when things like this happen is like, how luxurious, right? It's how amazing and how grateful am I for the life that I am living where I have the power to choose. And we are living at that time, I think, where, I think that for some of us, like we are still kind of grappling with, I have to make it hard for myself. If I'm going to succeed, it has to be hard. I know that I'm one of those people, right? Like there is a short, direct, easy path. And then there is a rocky path with like, that's very dark. And oftentimes I go there. And so I say here in the remote executive assistant space, if you are, you're kind of in that mindset, you're getting ready, for your next year and you, and you want to make it easier, right? You kind of have those two choices. But I also think about white space, right? Because anything that comes into our space is something that now we are thinking about. And so it's a perfect example of your podcast, right? Because if you went in to start doing the editing, and again, a lot of CEOs, entrepreneurs, this is where we go. Okay, I start to do the editing. I get curious. What are the other ways that people do editing? So it's not just about like, I'm going to do the editing. I now have the possibility to bring myself to become this like editing expert, or just because it's very fun. And so I think that's why it takes you longer sometimes. It's just because we are usually not individuals that go A, B, C, D. We are individuals a lot of the time that go A, we think about something. And so it's kind of, we have to protect ourselves from the kind of initiatives and activities that we take, because of whatever activity we're going to do, we can kind of bring into this like creative territory, and we have to be careful.
That's so interesting. You said that. I know it takes seven individuals minimum to actually put this podcast together and put it out. That's not including me or you. So now there's 9, right? But there's 7 people administratively between production. And I see so many people going, well, I'll edit my own podcast and I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll do that. And I say to them, what are your goals? And I want to, I'm a solo entrepreneur, a consultant. I want to be $1 million a year. And I'm like, you're not going to get there editing your own podcast. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? Right. So we have to be, but this white space, when you said it, boom, light bulbs went off in my head. I'm like, oh my God. I just went to, we're taking a vacation, a family vacation. And I'm like, let's go to, stay at a Verbo in a nice place, and I'm like, so I'm up there and I'm like, oh, that place is nice. Yeah, that place is nice. That place is nice. Yeah, but do we want to bring the cat with us, or do we want to leave the cat at home? Yeah, do we want to fly or do we want to drive? I mean, do we, and then I'm off, and now I'm looking on, I'm like, well, if we're going to drive, it's a long drive. Got 4 drivers, no problem, but let's rent a car. So I go to Enterprise, rent a car, and then I start going to Priceline, and I start, an hour and 15 minutes later, I still don't have the flipping Verbo picked, right?
Mm-hmm.
all that white space.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're saying this,
Mm-hmm.
it makes me laugh because sometimes, even though we know, like you said, sometimes you go to the rocky, dark space, even though it's a tendency to do that. But I can tell everyone that's listening to this, when you have somebody doing this for you, I would have had 3 to 5 choices on the verbo that I could have had, and it would have been narrowed down, and it would have shown me why and why not, and I could have made a decision in probably 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, book this one, and then that one gets booked, and now I don't have to deal with it, right? And so that's the power of what we're talking about. And when you say at least 10 weeks, I suspect people are spending way more than 10 weeks losing
Mm-hmm.
time.
There is this, I believe that we have only a certain amount of kind of creative energy that we could spend in a day, and we have to channel it in the areas that make the most sense. And so again, you can get really creative about choosing which car you're going to rent, right? And that's how you've used up that limited energy for the day or for the week. And this also goes into, I think that, success comes to us when we are balanced. And there is something that I noticed that we've been talking about this throughout this entire conversation, but I don't know if it's like zeroed in for people, that there are business activities that you can delegate out. And that's something that we've been starting to get more comfortable with. There's more conversation. So people kind of know if you're not delegating, it's kind of wrong, right? I don't want to say what's right or wrong, but if you're not delegating, right, and you want to get to a certain level of success, you're not going to get there. And we're starting to get comfortable with that idea. But in the business area, but all of the things that you've mentioned, a lot of them are in the personal space.
Right.
And we don't always think to delegate out the personal stuff. I know that for a lot of people, delegating anything personal, there's this feeling about it. Sometimes people feel like it's a taboo, especially when it's things related to our family, to our children, to our spouse. Is this correct? Can I get support with what my spouse is asking me for if I know that I'm not going to do it and my spouse needs it? And so if you start to kind of take an audit of both the business and the personal stuff as well, where can you make your life easier? Where can you make it smoother? Because if you are spending a lot of time in the business, and then and then family life, home life, personal life starts to take a toll, and we're not putting our energies into the things that make the operations run there, then we're not going to perform our best in our business. It's not possible. And so if there is so many things on that personal end that you can start to delegate out. Vacation planning, we have a lot of the times assistants looking for activities for kids, summer camps, all of those registrations. Let's say you're moving, you need to re-register a ton of stuff. Anything that's on your personal plate. And it actually goes back to white space, because anything that we know that we have to do, but we haven't done, it lives somewhere in the back of our head, even if it's something very tiny. I can give you a very short story. We have a client that she ordered a candle. The candle came broken in a bunch of different pieces, and she put the candle on the table. And every day she looks at this candle and she thinks, okay, it's not correct that I got a broken candle. I could throw it in the trash and I won't think about it anymore, but that doesn't feel good because I paid for it and it's broken, and I can't get myself to throw it away. I don't want to pay an assistant because the candle was like $15, and I actually don't know how long it's going to take the assistant to return it, or to to reach out to the vendor. So every day I look at this candle. Every day it's a small bit of like failure. I am not doing it. It's distracting me. And actually, it's stopping you from all of the other things. So you have to make a choice. Either throw it away or delegate it out if you're not going to do it. But it has to be taken off of your kind of physical desk. And that's all of the other small things in our mental space, so that we can clear it out, so we can have that white space for ourselves.
There is a third choice. You could leave the thing as is, and it will cost you $10,000 over the next year because you're spending all your time and energy in that,
Yes.
in that process. Valerie, I could talk with you all day, like as we both know. But I'm sure you've got other things that you're going to do today too. So thanks for giving some extra time here on the podcast. Is there anything like, hey, Doug, we probably should have just talked about that or whatever that may come to your head, or did we cover pretty much everything?
I think we did such a good job, Doug. I think that we did such a good job.
Okay. So
I feel complete.
We're going to put everything in the show notes for you all. But, you know, go to chatterboss.com and check it out. I'm going to leave us with a little funny story. This is something that I used to do. And I don't like clothes shopping. I just don't like it, right? So like I'm wearing an LL Bean thing here. And so basically my wife does all of this for me. She just takes care of it. But when I was single and I needed new clothes, I would go to a clothing store and I'd find the lady that I look at and go, my God, I wonder if she'd go out with me. And I would walk in there and I would say, hi, I need to buy all new clothing. Would you pick it out for me? And every time she did that, that woman would buy these clothes, or I'd go in a different store and I'd do that. Every time I did that and I went on a date, do you know what women said to me? My God, you're one of the best dressed men I've ever seen. Now, if I picked out what I thought I was supposed to have, I doubt I would have got a second date because, you know. So the reason I'm bringing this up is no different between that crazy little story in our business or anything we do in our personal life. We need to stay in our own zone of genius, let other people who are in their zones of genius do things for us, and therefore we create the ultimate leverage.
Bravo. How you tied that together,
Valerie, thanks for being here on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, bringing your A game. I really appreciate you being here. So what'd you learn? A, maybe you shouldn't be doing some things. B, maybe you're doing some things that you're doing now that you shouldn't be doing. C, do you like what you're doing or not like what you're doing, and outsource it if you don't like what you're doing. If you like what you're doing and you're outsourcing it and it's costing you a ton of money and a ton of time, maybe you shouldn't be doing that as well. And if you got that out of this podcast, then this was very successful, because if we can get our brains thinking in a way of leverage, how do we create more leverage again and again and again? That leverage allows you to open up free space for you to do other things that are far more valuable in the growth of your business. And if you want to be in the top 1%, you want your company to be in the top 1%, utilizing time is your biggest asset. You can throw money at something and you can, make it happy with money, but what if you only had to throw a quarter of the money at it because you're using the time more efficiently to actually drive the revenue up? So I wrote down a ton of notes. I love this thing about white space, especially when you get into a task. What are you doing? In other words, is the task something that you're going to innovate on, and it's just going to be like, hey, I planned on 5 minutes. Now it turns into 55 minutes and you just lost almost an hour of your time. Now, if you're doing those type of things, think about it this way. What's an hour of your time worth? If it's personal net, take your annual income, divide it down and figure out what an hour is, right? If it's your company revenue or your company profit, figure out what that is. Make it a little painful if you have to, because that'll allow you to say, okay, I can't keep doing that in this direction. I got to go in that direction. So if you like this topic of this podcast, or you have a topic that you think you would be an expert on, or you know somebody that's an expert, and you like to suggest the idea to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, please do so. Send an email to youmatter, youmatter, at ceosalesstrategiespodcast.com. And we'll review the idea. We'll get back to you. And if it fits, great. We'll talk about it. If it doesn't, we're going to get back to you anyways and let you know that it wouldn't be a fit. If you yourself want to get into the top 1%, in other words, you want to take your earnings up, you're somebody who sells, whether you're a CEO or business owner or sales team or salesperson, or you have a business and you want it to grow in revenue and grow in profitability and grow in its productivity and efficiency and effectiveness, reach out to me directly at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. And let's have a conversation to see if what I can do for you can help you as well. In 2023, we have something coming out called the 1% University, and we're teaching people how to be in the top 1% of sellers worldwide. If you have interest in that, please reach out to us as well. Until next time, go sell something. Sell it today if you can. Play win-win. That means they win, you win. Long-term gain, right? Sell it with ethics. Be the first to disengage if it's not right for the other person. Help somebody solve a problem or gain an opportunity in their life. Make them happier. It'll make you happier, and life will be happier all the way around. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast, signing off to your success.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. What is something that you learned that you could act on today? Don't forget to schedule it now, or it may never get forward momentum. If you find our content valuable, please leave a favorable review and let us know what you liked. Please also share this with others if the content will help them. For our show notes, other episodes, and more interesting content and resources, please visit ceosalesstrategiespodcast.com. See you soon, and to your continued success.